I often hear people say, oh, you're really good at arguing. You like arguing. You should be a lawyer. And I'm like, that's not it. I don't think of myself as somebody who likes arguing. I think of myself as a problem solver. I think that's what we do, right? First of all, can we get some common ground between our client and the defendant? And if the answer to that question is no, then we're doing what Sharif talked about, which is getting to know the client and humanize our client so that when we get to trial, we're not talking about file number 213. We're talking about a person.
This is RVA Trial Lawyers, Virginia's trial lawyer podcast, hosted by Sharif Gray and Nael Abuzaki.
Today, we have a very special guest, not just because she's a great attorney in the Richmond area and throughout the Commonwealth, but also she's a friend to myself and Sharif. Welcome aboard, Courtney.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
It's great to have you. So we were talking about how I met Courtney Winston for the first time. Backtrack, 3-4 years ago? Maybe longer, actually.
I think it was a little longer.
Yeah, like 5 or 6 years. I was prosecuting for Henrico County. That morning, a young prosecutor was sick, so they stopped by my office knowing that I love to do DUIs. And they were like, hey, can you cover DUID, which is DUIs involving drugs? So I said, sure. I'm going through the files at around 9 a.m., and then I see a particular file where a lady was involved in an accident, a head-on collision on 295. And I look, and I see the name Courtney Winston, and I look at the offer that was made by the prosecutor that was handling it before me, and offer that he had intended to make. And it was 10 days mandatory minimum because of the BAC. There was a mandatory minimum jail time. So I decided to reach out for the victim to ask her if she had any injuries because the report was a Virginia State Police report. We didn't have access to it in our database. And the lady goes, injuries, still in a wheelchair. About 60 to 70% of her body was burnt. She had a number of skin grafts, spent months in the hospital. I asked her to come to the hearing, even though I was going to null pros it, not telling her that I was going to null pros it. And as they wheel this lady into the courthouse, I get down and on one knee and kneel next to her to talk to her. And then I see Courtney Winston. And Courtney Winston comes with her client, and she did an excellent job with him, the way he dressed, the way he carried himself. And she indicated that they were going to accept the offer that the prior prosecutor made. At that time, I looked at Courtney, and I thought I was going to null pros the charge. She did not know why I was going to null pros the charge, and it probably caught her off guard. But I don't think she also appreciated the significant injuries that the victim suffered because of the fact no one had shared it with her.
Yeah, let's be fair. You did not know the injuries until then. I certainly did not know the injuries
she did not.
Until then.
And Courtney, to be fair to Courtney, after she appreciated the gravity of the case, Courtney got out of the case prior to circuit court, and the 10 days turned to 3.5 years, if I'm not mistaken, upstairs, even though, it was a simple night out where someone just drank, but they didn't appreciate the gravity of their actions, that, driving on a roadside of the highway on 295 and crashing head on can alter someone's life forever. And then this friendship was formed.
So I feel like you're telling this story in a way that makes it sound like I didn't get out of the case. So the issue was that was one of my last criminal cases before I switched over to civil plaintiff's work. And when that person hired me, it was for a simple DUI. So the null pros and being re-indicted and moving the case to circuit court, I mean, the fee that I was going to charge for a DUI was going to be very different than the fee that I charged for a DUI maiming. So we've got to say that because I feel like that's
wait. You got him a dismissal. Congratulations.
Thanks.
She did.
And
she did.
And an interesting wrinkle in the story is that the victim had a sensitivity to medicine. So she had 3 skin grafts by the time the district court case came up, but she did all of those with no pain medicine. So it was just it was not a good set of facts, but I don't want the story to be that I got out of the case because
no. That's not what I meant. She's too expensive, and second, she decided to do personal injury, and was like, you know what? Now I can actually sue my client.
That's right, and that's what happened.
I wouldn't be suing my client either.
That's right.
Also, Nael, I feel like there's a funny kind of like extra to this story that you also left off, which is he comes up to me in the hallway and he's like, "Hi, I'm Nael. You look just like the picture in your bio."
Well, I didn't know who Courtney Winston was at the time, right? And I looked, Well, we connected it, and guess what? The point of the story.
Do you not have a TV?
Is that I made a great... Yeah, you know what? I didn't get a chance to
see the commercials? Sorry, we're not there yet.
Okay,
in terms of time.
Let's start with Alan.
Can we actually introduce her?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you start.
All right. So Courtney is a good friend of both the Honorable Nael Abuzaki as well as myself. And Courtney has since made the transition to plaintiff's personal injury work. Very big time when it comes to sexual assault cases. And then, of course, your catastrophic injury car wreck cases. I asked that she just refers all her good cases to me, and that she has yet to take me up on that. But hopefully one day. But no, it's a privilege to have you here. Thank you. I'm very excited. I see you often, kind of like us, going to all these conferences, doing all the different trainings, trying to get better. You're without question one of those nonstop learners. And so, again, really excited to have you here. So if you wouldn't mind, take a few minutes. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. So my name's Courtney Winston. I'm a civil plaintiff's attorney. I work in the Richmond, Virginia office of Allen. So as Nael mentioned in his intro story, I started my career doing criminal defense work, and I work for David Baugh. So if you're in the Richmond, Petersburg, Henrico area, he's a pretty famous but also notorious
throughout the country.
I mean,
David Baugh has,
he's great. So I learned how to try cases through working with him, and not just the rules and the mechanics, but also who to be in the courtroom. So I worked for him for about 6 years, and then I started doing civil plaintiffs work. Actually, my first 2 circuit court cases were both sexual assault cases against massage envy. So that's how I got in this line of work, is that those cases just kind of fell into my lap. And I was at that firm for a little while, and I'm at the Allens now. And that pretty much brings us to today. Quick bio, unless you want more details.
Tons more details. So no, anyways, no, again, really, really happy to have you here. So there's a million things, of course, we can talk about. One of the things that I wanted to get into is talking about the benefits of having the criminal experience and the trial experience that comes with that, and really just the confidence to have handled criminal cases and to have handled them successfully, and how that's transitioned over into the civil world. And I can guess it's been a huge asset.
Let's start with your background. Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, I'm born and raised, I mean, Richmond, Virginia, but really I grew up in Midlothian.
South of the river, right.
Yeah.
Grew up here. What was the impetus that led you to law school?
I feel like that was so long ago. I'm trying to remember.
I guarantee your reason's going to be better than at least mine. I saw a really cool movie, and I was like, I want to be Tom Cruise when I grow up.
Okay.
And so that was my path. So you can probably beat that reasoning.
And I feel like this makes sense with the JAG court, too.
It does. It makes perfect sense.
Okay.
So I'm a little taller than Tom Cruise.
All right, Maverick.
So there we go. Well, you know what my son's name is?
Is your son's name Maverick?
My son is named Maverick.
I did not know that.
And it's funny. People are like, "Oh, so you're gonna name your second kid Goose?" I'm like, "Dude, you haven't seen the movie. Like, Goose doesn't make it to the end, right? So,
right.
you don't name your kid Goose." Anyways,
so that's we know
okay,
we know why.
Fair. That is fair.
There we go. All right.
So, is it something that you always wanted to do?
No, I didn't make the decision to go to law school until my 4th year of undergrad. I went to UVA, so we're not junior, senior. We're 3rd and 4th year. No such thing as a senior learner. So I was taking a lot of classes that had to do with human rights and politics and making the world a better place. And like I said, towards the end of those 4 years, I decided, okay, a way that we can do this is through law school. So I had a couple of classes that I took that dealt with the development of third world countries. And one year, I think it was my fourth year at EVA, for spring break, we went to DC and we just toured around different NGOs in DC with my professor. And a lot of the people that we talked to were lawyers. So I was like, if I want to make a difference in the world, here's what I need to do. And I actually thought that I would be representing enemy combatants. That was like my first pursuit that I thought I wanted to do in terms of the legal profession.
So taken away from that, lawyers make this world a better place.
That's right. Right. We make it a little bit more complicated too. But so international law was something that you're interested in?
It was.
You know, it's interesting. Same thing with me until I went to law school and I realized that there's no such thing as international law, but we just make it up, right?
Right.
But because I mean, and I say that somewhat half-heartedly, but in all seriousness, I mean, there's no sovereign, right? There's no controlling authority, so it makes international law not a traditional jurisprudence in the sense that, I mean, it's based on politics and
Well, you can go to work for The Hague.
That's right. You could. Yep. So, but anyways, no, but definitely, it's definitely an interesting area. So what led you then? So you go to law school, you're trying to make a difference. What led you to trial work and then ultimately to criminal defense?
So I think it was the summer between undergrad and law school. I summered with my dad's friend who is a criminal defense attorney. And I remember the first day of work, I was thinking to myself, and this was like 19-year-old Courtney, 18-year-old Courtney, 21. How old are you when you graduate from college? 21, 22?
Yes.
I know, it's been a while.
So, yeah, I remember just going to the office and thinking to myself, I'm not going to represent criminals. And now I would never use that term, but at the time, that was the thought. And after the first day, I was like, this is kind of the best job ever. So it just took one day of summer internship. And I was like, yes, I'm going to be a criminal defense attorney.
Well, that's better than Sharif. It took an hour and a half movie to.
That's right. That's right. And what was it that said that first day of this criminal defense internship, I mean, you left and you knew that this is what you wanted to do? What was it about that first day?
So there wasn't anything in particular that happened. It was just exciting. It just seemed like a job that you would work and every single day would be different. And that appealed to me.
I mean, it's a hectic job, right? Like you're on the phone with the prosecutors, right? You're running around to different...
Wait. Were prosecutors calling you back? Because I can barely get a call back from Nael.
That's right.
That's as a prosecutor, or is just
well, excuse me.
Life.
You're on the phone leaving messages with the prosecutor, right? You're on the phone with your clients, right? You're running to different courthouses, jumping to different courtrooms. I mean, scheduling meetings, trying to retain clients. I mean, it's a lot.
It is a lot. And my favorite move with that is I would call, I'd leave a message. I'll be like, hey, I'm going to be in your building tomorrow. So if you don't call back today, I'll just pop in while I'm there.
And is this with a prosecutor?
Yeah.
other than Nael.
No, Nael is incredibly
Other
responsive.
non-Nael prosecutors.
Exactly.
That's right. Yeah. Well, Judge Nael is never... I mean, he returns all calls.
I don't think he has to talk on the phone anymore.
Not anymore. At all.
No ex parte communications, Your Honor.
Other than this.
That's right.
It's just for fun.
So criminal defense. So you ultimately graduate law school, and then is it you go and work with David Ball starting off, or what ended up happening?
So I didn't have a job when I graduated from law school. So I was volunteering at Legal Aid. And my mentor there was Doris Causey, who's now on the Virginia Court of Appeals. So she was my first person that kind of showed me around, showed me the ropes, was like, yeah, you're going to be driving from court to court. So you need to know how to get into the courthouses and where to go. And you need to know which courthouses have special doors for attorneys and when you need to make time to go through and wait in the line with the non-lawyer folks. But I was with Doris for less than a year. And I told her that I was interested in criminal work, which legal aid is civil issues, landlord-tenant, non-contested divorces, that kind of thing. So she encouraged me to get my Virginia Indigent Practice Certificate, which allows you to take court-appointed cases, which then allows you to get to know judges and the training videos had recordings of David Baugh. So I watched the videos, I got my certification, and I was talking to Doris one day, and I was like, do you know who's so interesting to me? And she was like, David? She was like, he lives here. So then I just started seeing him around in court. And I spoke to him a few times, and one day we were actually in the Manchester courthouse, and I said hello to me, and he said hello back, but he said, hello, Courtney. And I was like, oh, man, like, I have made it. He knows who I am.
David Baugh knows my name.
Yeah. So I hadn't been out of law school for very long at that point, and I still had my Lexis and Westlaw logins. So I literally, like, you'll appreciate this, like TV movie style, chased him out of the courthouse. And I was like, hey, if you ever need anyone to do any research for you, let me know. I'm really good at writing. And I will help you if you need anything. And he kind of looked at me and he was like, I'm not looking for an associate. And I was like, okay, no problem. So he called me later that day and he offered for me to interview for a job with him at like 7:30 the next day, which was a Saturday. And so we met at Can and we had breakfast, and then he offered me a job.
You know, one thing about David Baugh, and for our listeners that don't know David Baugh, he prouds himself of being fired as a federal prosecutor on the front page of the Washington Post.
That's right.
And I'm sure he probably shared that story with you. He says that's probably the best thing that's ever happened to him as an attorney. And my interaction with David Baugh, I had a racketeering case. It was a $68 million RICO case that I was doing in Henrico County.
Was it P. Diddy?
We're getting there. And I remember, he would file every motion that he could think of under the sun. And we became friends throughout, because the case was about 6 to 8 months, and we became friends, and he'll come hang out with me in the office. I'm like, David, why are you filing these frivolous motions? He's like, well, you have to respond to them, right? I was like, yes. And he was like, and you're very busy. And I'm like, yes. And he's like, so when you're responding to the motions, you're not prepping for the case. So I know how busy prosecutors are. And David had a particular way of trying cases. How much of that rubbed off on you? And were you the one that was writing these motions, given the fact that you probably were, or was it David?
I'm sure he wrote the motions. I might have gone back through and revised them. But so I was actually talking to a group of plaintiffs' attorneys about this last month. And that is, when you're doing criminal defense work, only the defendant has a right to appeal, right? As a prosecutor,
Yes.
You can't appeal a decision. And the way that you make sure that your appeal track is as long as it possibly can be is that you've got to raise constitutional issues, right?
Yes.
That makes your appeal track so much longer than if it's just state implicated issues. So a lot of David's motions practice had that in mind. And perhaps some of it is, yes, we're going to make you, the prosecutor, work really hard, but it's not just for that. It's because he's trying to pursue every avenue for the client defendant.
And I'll tell you that case ended well. And ended us for us, we kind of have this friendship, and he ended it with giving me a Tuskegee Airman challenge coin because of his father.
Right.
And you can share a little bit more about his father, then we'll continue on. His father was a Tuskegee Airman.
Yeah, and he has a statue in Petersburg in his honor.
So you worked with David Baugh for about 6 years.
That's right.
What kind of cases did you do?
Everything. So we did shootings, stabbings, murders, drug distribution, abduction, sexual assault cases on the defense side, and then little things, DUIs, driving without a license. We had this interesting case also in Henrico County where our client was charged with like DUI 13th. And an interesting fact about David that you don't know unless you get to know him is that sometimes he's sitting in court, and if he doesn't like how things are going, he'll just stand up and offer to represent people for free. So the driving without a license 13th was someone that he just happened to strike up a conversation with, and this guy was just telling his story, and Dave was like, do you want a lawyer? I'll represent you for free.
He was there to prevent injustice.
Right. Meanwhile, he's turning down like high profile celebrity cases, but would help the little guy if he needed it.
And that's one thing I appreciated about him. So 6 years of criminal work.
That's right.
Then you transitioned to personal injury.
Right.
Of course, after having that case with me. What led you to that transition? Why did you decide to do PI?
So back to David. So David had retired 2 times before I started working for him. And he was talking about retiring again, which I wasn't too worried about because I knew he would make sure that I was comfortable before he made that move. But around that time, I had a friend who called me up one day and he was like, hey, Courtney, I got you a job interview at this PI firm. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't want a job interview at a PI firm. So he's like, well, my friend owns this firm and they're looking for a litigator and the cases aren't going to trial and he doesn't have anyone in the office who would try the case. So I told him you'd interview with him. And I was not stoked. I was like, that's kind of a weird promise for you to make on my behalf, but okay. So I went in for the interview and it was pretty informal and we just kind of talked about trial work. I had just tried a murder case in Richmond where we argued self-defense and my client was charged with first-degree murder and he was found not guilty. So that was enough to get me a job as a PI attorney. And that's how it started. So I didn't really, I wasn't necessarily pursuing this profession or this change. It just kind of presented itself and then
the profession pursued you.
That's exactly what
What
happened.
was it though that was like, okay, I think I can do this. Like, I want to give this a shot.
So I mentioned the massage envy cases earlier. So
Right.
this firm had 2 cases, 2 separate women who were assaulted at massage envy, and they weren't sure if they were going to try to figure out how to do sexual assault litigation or if it was something that they were going to refer to another firm. So that was interesting to me because I didn't know anything about PI anyway. So whether it was sexual assault or car crashes or premises or catastrophic injury, whatever it was, I was going to have to learn anyway. Like I didn't have any knowledge in that field. So I thought, okay, this will be an interesting transition from criminal to civil because these cases have components of both. And if I'm learning something new, then it seems worthwhile to learn something new that is new to the firm so that then I have a little bit of niche within the practice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we actually, our firm, we've got a massage envy case as well right now, and they're
Just send it to me.
They're their own. I thought we were doing things the other way around. Now I'm joking, but they're their own. Actually, you did assist. You sent me some sample
Yeah, I think I
discovery.
sent you some discovery.
So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
But anyways, it is really neat, and actually, all 3 of us to some extent are associated with the National Crime Victims Bar Association, and that's a group that represents crime victims, and a lot of that group, right, are plaintiff's attorneys, are people that are representing victims on the civil side. So the cases oftentimes sound and look like criminal cases,
Right.
And so it's a neat practice area, and it's definitely different from the run-of-the-mill car wreck or premises type cases.
Exactly.
Sharif often says that doing those cases, you have in a way to put on a lens of a prosecutor. You have to focus on shedding light to the truth to lead to justice for these victims. You've never prosecuted. How were you able to come in and say, you know what? Now I'm taking, instead of looking at it from the defense side, I'm going to hold this company accountable and make these victims whole.
So I haven't prosecuted criminally, but I mean, prosecute is a word that you could use for civil plaintiffs' work too. So if I have a case that has a criminal component and that criminal component is ongoing while my case is pending, then I almost look at myself as something like a translator or an interpreter or a liaison, because as you know, and as you know, prosecutors have really heavy dockets, criminal prosecutors, and criminal cases are the Commonwealth of Virginia versus the defendant. The victim, or the person who would be my client, is not a party to the criminal case. She or he is a witness, and that's it. And busy prosecutors treat my clients like witnesses. They're not returning phone calls. They're not communicating well in advance. You know, we've got people who are going in to tell a very personal, very disturbing story in court, which is a public forum. And maybe somebody talks to them a week or a couple days before that trial or before that hearing. So, I mean, first and foremost, I try to be a resource for my client. And like I said, if the criminal case is pending, then I try to explain the criminal process to them because I have that knowledge and I can fill in those gaps. I don't get involved with the criminal prosecution, but like I said, do try to explain to my client what is going on in that part of the case. Civilly, it's, I think, very different because when you've got a criminal case, you're going after the individual defendant and your goal is jail time or some type of behavioral training or adjustment or program or something like that. On the civil side, you can go after the individual, but yes, you can also go after the business. And I think the benefit for that is instead of just telling one person one at a time, hey, you know, perhaps you shouldn't be touching clients inappropriately, you have the opportunity to get the owner or the industry or the business to put safeguards into play so that A, it doesn't happen and they aren't hiring these types of people. And B, if someone like that slips through the cracks, then you've got things like a panic button underneath of the massage table so that the client can mitigate any harm.
So it's more of, you know, making the practice a safer place by incentivizing these companies to either vet who they're hiring, and if they don't do a good job vetting one or two, they give that panic alarm to these, you know, future victims to say, hey, this
Well,
guy's...
let's not call them future victims. Let's just call them their customers.
future customers.
Yeah,
Well,
they're customers.
They have to be, in a way, they're victimized when they come see you, right? By the actions of either the company or the masseuse.
Right.
Yeah.
So like Hand and Stone is a local chain here, but all of their massage therapy rooms have a panic button that is accessible to the client who's receiving the massage. And when you go in to change to get ready for the massage, there's a little card on the table that lets the customer know that the button is there and how to use it. Huh. So they're a small, like I said, I mean, local chain, not a teeny tiny business by any stretch of the imagination, but they're a company that, in my opinion, is doing it the right way. And there's no reason why other larger companies can't do something similar.
Not a paid advertisement, but at least pointing
Not a paid ad, but
pointing out what people do right.
I imagine our listeners are probably like, what? Like, well, I never thought a massage place would be potentially a dangerous place, right? And at least I thought that a few years ago. The idea that there are not hundreds, but there are thousands of massage parlor sex assault claims at any given time, gosh, some just against Massage Envy, right, is hard to really kind of, for me at least, at one point it was hard to accept. I remember I did an LLM up at Temple. It was a part-time program and it was on trial advocacy. I remember one of the kind of the visiting professors for one of our weekends up there was one of the prosecutors on the Bill Cosby case. And she had since transitioned to civil practice, and no surprise, her practice was representing sex assault victims. And I remember asking her, I said, well, how many cases do you have? I think she was leading their section at whatever firm she was with. And she was like, I got like 200. And I remember just thinking like, 200? And so it's a real problem and it's out there. And we're somewhat numb to it, I guess, in our roles, right? Because we view sex assault cases on the civil practice side as a practice area, because it is. And because there's that much of it going around. But anyways, what the point that I want to make is, like, I think if you look at a personal injury attorney, I think the immediate thought is like, all we're doing is like asking for money, compensation, right? And I'd be interested in your take on this. I don't think our cases are about money. And I know that sounds super odd, right? Because at the end of the day, everything is dictated by money in a civil suit. But really, I view us as we're public safety attorneys. We have the opportunity to go, like you said, to these corporate entities and to force them to make a change. And the money is just the means to do so, which has been, at least to me, gives me a lot of meaning in this work. And I'm sure it sounds like for you, it's very similar, because we're not just trading dollars, right? I mean, yeah, there's a spectrum of personal injury firms and personal injury lawyers. And yes, I would argue that towards the bottom of that spectrum are lawyers who are more just in it for the business. And then I would say kind of maybe more towards the top of that spectrum are very good lawyers who really are trying to make a difference in the world by the way the cases are taking and by the way that they are prosecuting them. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we are in the position to make change, which kind of going back to what sent me to law school in the first place. It's we can make a difference. Many of our clients would love if we could go into a time machine and prevent something from happening, but we don't have that power. And when you're going after a corporation, the only way to get them to think critically about their behaviors is if you hit them in their pocketbook where they feel it. So I know you've talked to Joe Freed. Randy McGinn is another lawyer who spends a lot of her practice. I mean, if she's got a case that's being mediated and she knows that case is on the way to some type of confidentiality, that's when she's asking for policy changes. And I forget the term, but I mean, Joe Freed has sold more cameras that they use in the trucking industry than any other individual person, because when he's negotiating settlements for his trucking cases, he asks that companies install these cameras.
Let me ask you, so Sharif touched on, well, it's not about money. How often do you get up in front of a jury and tell them this is not about money? It's accountability. And at the end of this case, you get to hold someone accountable for victimizing this young girl or this young lady. Do you go that far to kind of empower them that I'm not just up here standing for money, but in a way, that's the only way to hold them accountable?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it, right? Like,
because they're in business.
They're a business, but also, like, we don't have a time machine. And what other remedy is there that exists? We're not eye for an eye, right? We're not.
Depends which jurisdiction you're in. Hanover, it's eye for an eye.
Or if you're
in Judge Abuzaki's courtroom, it's eye for an eye.
I was thinking more like, right now under the Joulanis in Syria. That's what
well, no, I mean, it really is.
Very, very extreme.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're not putting CEOs in jail, right? We're not giving them the death penalty. So that leaves monetary damages. That's what we've got.
That's all we have. And actually, I don't want to forget this, but it's funny how when we started off this episode, we were talking about what would otherwise be a run-of-the-mill traffic criminal prosecution, that ultimately, once you all found out, well, more so when you took over as the prosecutor now, you realize, no, there's a lot more than just a DUI here. There's something that, and I remember when I prosecuted that oftentimes we would look at those traffic cases and maybe I feel I'm embarrassed to even say this, but like we didn't pay much attention to them, right? I mean, unless something kind of was a red flag and kind of screamed at you and said, hey, no, this one's a little bit different. Because I think a lot of times we think, oh, it's just a civil case. And so I think the civil case gives us the opportunity to get that accountability. And then one step farther, which I know we talk about all the time on this podcast, it's the recognition of the value of what was taken from that person's life and their health. And that to me is, in addition to the accountability piece and having at least the opportunity to try and make a difference, to alter conduct, to make things safer for others, getting to be an advocate. And I'm sure people listening to this are like, yep, Sharif's a true believer. And I am. But getting to be an advocate for the value of the simple thing like getting to throw a ball with your kid, and now you can't do that anymore because someone was being careless and ultimately caused you injury. So to me, it's very, very powerful work.
And I think that you can talk about that in a way that kind of resonates with American values, right? So we're not talking about taking away someone's life. We're not talking about taking away someone's liberty. No one's going to jail. But we are talking about how a defendant, a car crash defendant or a sexual assault defendant or somebody who has a dangerous dog that they're not properly handling or a doctor, I mean, you're taking away somebody's pursuit of happiness, which is still, a constitutional guarantee, right? Something that we think of as being an American value. And I think that you can kind of explain to a jury, this is why we're here. It's for not just the medical bills, but the things that you said. You couldn't throw your baseball with your kid for X amount of time, or you lived by yourself and then a parent or a sibling or someone had to move in with you because you couldn't walk up and down the stairs or shower or dress for a period of time while you're recovering. So, I mean, back to the money question, that's all of that suffering, all of that pain has value, and there's only one way to assess it.
The recognizing what was taken and having the jury really appreciate it. And, it reminds me of when I got COVID for the first time, Courtney. I would wake up in the morning and get out of bed and walk into the bathroom. And my routine is brush my teeth, shower, and go make my coffee. I would brush my teeth, shower, and then forget whether or not I showered because I can't taste the toothpaste. So the taste of the toothpaste had a value that kept my morning in order that I never appreciated until I lost my sense for taste and smell. So I would brush my teeth twice because I don't remember whether or not I brushed it.
I'm sure your dentist was okay with that.
So the question is, at that time, you asked me now, what would you do? And I would tell you, I'll pay anything to get my sense of taste and smell back, because it kind of put things back in track for me. I was just lost. And many jurors may think to their mind, oh, it's all about money. But no, it's you as a trial attorney, you have to break it down to day-to-day life. How has this affected day-to-day life? And if you do a great job and put the jurors in the shoes of the victim without telling them to put themselves in the shoes of the victim,
golden rule,
and have them walk through their day-to-day life, that in itself will lead to the accountability and the money part. And I not many do that. You see they get up and they talk, but and last time we talked about emotions, and you don't want to try to emotions, but you have to move the jury with the struggles that this person feels. For me, if I see a loved one in pain and where my father or my mom is grabbing my arm to get up because of a result of an accident, you got to kind of flush that out,
right.
Or they're screaming and it's your dad that's hurting and you can't do anything about what happened to him.
Yeah, but before you do that, and I agree with everything you're saying, and I think something that separates the good from the great is the work that's done in advance to, one, discover that story, and then two, to plan in a way where that story comes out not scripted, but genuine, and in a way that really kind of exemplifies what your client has experienced. And oftentimes that's not through the client.
And Courtney touched on that because that's when you spend time with your client. And I often say on this podcast that to be a great trial attorney, you got to be a great human because you can connect with other great humans and you can connect with the jury where they feel it. But before the jury, it's actually the client you have to connect with. They have to put their guard down. They have to trust you. They have to be vulnerable with you. So their story kind of sinks in and it becomes part of your story that you're going to relay to the jury.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and it's a privilege. I mean, our clients, this is their only case, right? And they let us into their lives. They trust us to handle their cases, and for them to invite us in and trust us to walk into that courtroom and tell their story. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Like that's why this is such cool work and meaningful work. And I think that transcends not just civil work, but criminal work as well. I mean, it's incredibly meaningful. So that's why anyone asks, hey, you want to be a lawyer? I'm like, or what's it like being a lawyer? I say, I love it. This is not a job to me. This is.
Let me ask you that question. What is it like to be a lawyer? And that's something where you went to school to make a difference.
Yeah, so I often hear people say, oh, you're really good at arguing. You like arguing. You should be a lawyer. And I'm like, that's not it. I don't think of myself as somebody who likes arguing. I think of myself as a problem solver. And I think that's what we do, right? I mean, in the initial stages, we're trying to figure out, okay, first of all, can we get some common ground between our client and the defendant? And if the answer to that question is no, then we're doing what Sharif talked about, which is getting to know the client, which, I mean, can help us pre-trial if settlement and negotiations are something that is achievable. And if it's not, then it helps us get to learn our client and humanize our client so that when we get to trial, we're not talking about file number 213. We're talking about a person.
And, I have to admit, I complimented you not too long ago. I got the opportunity to sit down in a courtroom before I became a judge, and hearing that Courtney was going to be in Henrico County Circuit, and not only, I love always seeing Courtney, but I hear she does great work, and you did a phenomenal job in voir dire. And the reason why you did a phenomenal job in voir dire, it's because of the way you interacted with the jury. It was a conversation. And I've also seen you talk to future clients, and it was the same way you spoke to those clients, just like you spoke to the jury. So how do you manage to just be yourself?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me about voir dire, and I was really excited for that because I think all of us love voir dire, but
we're going to get there.
Wait, she was doing voir dire in Henrico? They let voir dire happen in Henrico, Your Honor?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so your question about how to be yourself. So, I mean, I think that's hard to do, and all three of us love going to conferences and learning from the greats and talking to lawyers with more experience than we have. But I think it's just a learned thing. So going back to David has a very different courtroom style and presence than what I have. And I think a benefit of working for him, so David's a man, I'm a woman. We're, like I said, I think we're like 40 years apart. I was never going to be David, right? And I think that having a mentor that was so different from me, the opportunity for me to be exactly like him didn't really exist because that was just never happening, right? Like I was not his peer. He's heads and shoulders ahead of me. So I had him as an example, as a great example of here's how you try cases. But I was never going to be David. So I had to be somebody. And that somebody was me. So my thought when I go into a courtroom, and I feel this way throughout the trial, is I just am welcoming people into my house. So I go in, I talk to my jury, I make eye contact with them, and I try to talk to them the way that I would talk to anybody, a clerk at the grocery store, or you guys, us sitting in this room doing this podcast. And I try very hard not to lawyer my way through the case because, let's face it, people don't like lawyers, right? I mean, you get into your car, every single safety feature in your car came from some type of litigation and some type of lawyer, but people still think that they don't like us. So I just do my best to be my normal self when I'm in the courtroom. I mean, I don't have a magical recipe for how to make that happen. It's just something that you have to practice like anything else.
Yes.
Yeah, well, trucking regulations. I mean, tobacco, right? I mean, very proud to say that trial lawyers are behind a lot of that, right? I mean,
right, but people still think that they don't like us. So going into court and starting voir dire as, "Hi, I'm Courtney the lawyer," I mean, that's not winning me any friends.
well, especially, "Hi, I'm Courtney, and I am a personal injury lawyer," right? I mean, it's even worse.
Well, perhaps, but I don't think that. I mean, I think the public thinks that they don't like any of us. So you've got to be something likable.
That's right.
Question for you. You work for a well-reputable firm that's very well known. And driving to work or driving on the highway, you see signs for this particular firm. How do you, in front of the jury, distance yourself from this big company that may come across to jurors, the big company that makes a lot of money, to say, this is, we're still dealing with this victim. This is not about money. And I know that the other side wants to say, hey, it's Alan, and Alan. You know who Alan is, and they're all against this little person. How do you distance yourself? Say, no, let's just reel this back.
Well, I think one thing that makes this easy is that I think our advertising is very tasteful. We're not a firm that is talking about how many millions or billions of dollars we're getting in years or over the years in recovery. And we have a good reputation throughout the state. So I agree that, your quote unquote billboard lawyers have that hurdle to jump over. I think it's less of an issue with this firm, but even so, there's not a team of lawyers at the table. So ideally, we all try our cases in pairs. Someone's teaching and someone's learning. So we've got maybe 2 lawyers at the table. If we have other people from the firm who come and observe, they sit in the audience. And if defense counsel wants to say, look at all of these Alan and Alan folks who are here, this team of lawyers beating up on my poor little defendant who just wasn't paying attention. I think the retort to that is, well, we're here because this case is important. Yeah. And to Sharif's point, we're hoping that the result of this case provides some type of social change that helps everybody. So I don't worry too much about that. I can ask questions in voir dire about, have you seen me in a commercial, and does that impact your opinions about this case? I mean, typically I'm looking for a fair jury, and that means fair to me and fair to the defendant. So if I'm concerned that, hey, a new commercial is out and I'm front and center and I want to make sure that it's not going to sway the decision either way, I'm not afraid to ask that question.
Why do you enjoy voir dire so much? And why is it, and I've heard you say it's one of your favorite parts of the trial, and why is that?
Oh my God, how much time do we have? So I love it because it is unscripted, right? So I can write out a fantastic opening, fantastic closing. I can write out my cross. I can write out my direct. And opening and closing, it's me, right? It's the Courtney show. Nobody's going to change anything that I've drafted for that. By the time we get to trial, cross and direct, we know what direct, you should know what all of the answers are going to be. Cross, you know what the majority of the answers are going to be. So the only improv, ad lib, true kind of in the moment, you don't know what's going to happen moment is the voir dire. And it's just, I mean, it's the only time that the jury can talk to you. You get to pick your jury. You don't get to pick your judge. Right, Sharif?
That's right.
So it's just, I mean, I feel like that's your time to like get to be a normal person in the trial. So I just love it. You don't know what's going to happen. You're talking to ordinary people. Hopefully they're honest with you. They're giving you good information, some stuff you've thought of, some stuff that you haven't. So I had a trial where I asked the panel the question, have you ever broken a rule? And in asking that question, I just wanted people to have open conversation. And my follow-up question was going to be, have you ever broken a rule that resulted in somebody getting hurt? So what ended up happening is that it turned into a confessional. And I had people saying, like, I was smoking weed before it was legal, and like I would drink and drive one time and I like rode off the road, but thankfully nobody else was hurt, and I haven't drank and drive since, or like I snuck out of my parents' house. And it was a very interesting like bonding moment where the juror, and that really was not what I was looking for.
You all bonded because vulnerability.
We bonded, right. And the jurors are like, oh, I snuck out of my parents' house too. And it was awesome. Like it was
for you.
It was awesome for me, but it was better than anything that I could have predicted when I was writing out my questions. And guess what? Now they like me. So I just like that kind of stuff. It's off script, it's unexpected, and it's just genuine human interaction.
So there's a difference between being liked and being found credible.
Well,
right?
I won that case, Sharif.
No. I'm thinking.
I got every dollar that I asked for.
Well, so it worked. And I'm not, by no means am I trying to, but just thinking out loud, it's possible to be liked by a friend, but then to still disagree with one's opinion or reasoning, right? So let's take it one step farther. Yes, we want to be liked, but what do we do to build trust? Because ultimately, I think, there's a few goals in voir dire, and we've spoken on it a couple times, and we're doing it again here in September.
I was like, surprised to Nael, you guys are speaking on it.
Yeah. I think he might be aware we're going to be in Florida speaking on it. So, but how does one become credible in the courtroom? And I recognize there's no like magic bullet, but what are your thoughts on that in the context of voir dire?
I think they kind of go hand in hand. And I think that that's why it's important when you show up for a trial to be yourself, right? So if I go into court and I'm like dressing differently or speaking differently, or I'm like super stiff and unapproachable, that's going to turn off some people, and then they're going to be skeptical towards me, and that's going to have negative implications for my credibility. So I agree that being liked and being credible aren't the same, and just because your jury likes you, that doesn't mean that they're going to rule in your favor. But I think that interaction that I just told you about in particular, I'm sure it was different from what the jury was expecting when they walked into the courtroom that morning. And again, we had some normal human interaction. So hopefully that translated to them letting their guard down a little bit and being open to the fact that maybe I am credible.
And Courtney, what you did there, so let's kind of backtrack a bit. Let's say your friend is having an issue and you go sit down with a friend, and a friend tells you the issue that they're having. And then you leave, and often you get a text from your friend, hey, I want to thank you for listening to me. You made me feel better. What you've done there, you built a bridge of trust with complete strangers, and you made every single person feel better because they're able to admit in open court and in a courtroom.
Right, where there's deputies standing around.
You got a deputy, you got a judge in a black robe.
Right.
About things that they did wrong. Yeah. And that's powerful. That is so powerful. And I can't put in words how powerful it is, and that bridge of trust that you built, how important it was for your case.
Right. And it's important because, once people are confessing crimes, hopefully they're honestly answering questions that I'm asking about biases they might have about the case. And now we've created this environment where people are already telling their secrets. And all I'm trying to get to are, do you have ideas that you're not going to be able to part with that are going to make me lose my case?
It's a question that you didn't intend for it to have the effect that it was going to have on a case. It was a question that you just wanted simple answers to and go there. But
no, it was really a foundational question.
I hope you're still asking that question.
So a couple things. First off, it wasn't just the question that had people open up, right? What was it that you did, I guess, in advance of asking that question that gave people the freedom to say, hey, I can speak up and share?
Yeah, I think we could do a whole podcast on this, but I think it goes back to just credibility. So
it's the way she carries herself. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I was just going to say, voir dire is not a time for me to judge the panel. It's a time for me to talk about the case. And again, you can't pick your judge. You can't say, hey, judge, let me ask you some questions about your viewpoints on this case. But you can do that with a jury. And I think that's a huge advantage to the jury system, whether it's civil or criminal. And whether it's going in and making everybody feel comfortable so that you're having a pseudo confessional, or you're doing it in your own way, whatever your own way might be. I mean, the ultimate goal, and the goal that I go in there with, is, this is my chance to talk to the panel, and I want people to talk to me. And that's why it's my favorite part of trial, because it's the only off script opportunity that you have. It's the only, and I think that's why people also don't like it, right? Like, you can control pretty much everything else about what's happening in that room. So I think it's, being uncomfortable and chaotic and unpredictable experiences, but you've got to do it in a way that make other people feel comfortable too.
Absolutely. And it's the listening piece is a big one. And we're all guilty of it. I'm especially guilty of listening to respond versus listening to listen. And I've found that when you listen to truly listen, which is what you did, right? Now, the person who's speaking to you can tell, and they can tell that you care about what their opinion is, what their story is. And just that, as simple as it sounds, but it's actually not that easy, but just the willingness to do that and to truly listen, I think engenders that trust. There's one thing that you said right before we got into this conversation that I haven't forgotten about, and it's something that actually Nael talks about fairly often. But you said you want to welcome them like you're welcoming them to your house, or my house, right? And when I heard that, I was like, that's a Nael Abuzaki saying, or it should be.
I'm sure I said it first.
That's right. But Nael talks often about, especially in the role of the prosecutor, which, for purposes of this conversation, let's say, the plaintiff is the prosecutor. In many ways, I think they're the same. It is your house. It's your courtroom, right? And you control it, and you assert control over that courtroom. And I'm trying to avoid using the word dominate, but you need to dominate that courtroom.
Yeah, it's your house, right? Like a sports kind of this is our house.
That's right. Yeah. And there are things you can do, and I'm sure now you've got tons of things to mention that you can do to be like, no, this is how you assert control of the courtroom.
And it's not dominating, it's having domineering presence, that everyone looks at you as the leader.
Right,
and
you're
the
the
voice.
authority.
You're the authority in that courtroom. And if there's a question, you answer that question. And I tell young prosecutors, if defense attorney has a motion to continue, you get up. You say, Your Honor, it's the Commonwealth's understanding that the defense has a motion to continue. You sit down. It's their motion.
You can't just coach the prosecutors now, sir.
No. That's when I was a prosecutor. But that's, it's making sure you are the voice. And I used to tell even students that want to be defense attorneys about when it's a bond hearing. You know what the prosecutor is going to say to keep your client in jail under 19.2-120. You say it. You take the sting out of the criminal history. You take the sting out of the facts. Because when the prosecutor gets up and emphatically wants to say it, guess what? It doesn't have that sting anymore.
Right. You say it with your spin on it.
You say it with your spin, and that's powerful. But a lot of people lose sight of that. And it's that domineering presence rather than dominate. And it's your courtroom. You take control. And I've seen you take control with your domineering presence. Let's put it this way. So
I'm going to put this on a list of things that people don't say to my face.
So talking about, and you want to be a good trial attorney, and particularly a good trial attorney in voir dire, go to a bar. Sit at a bar and just talk to people, random people.
You can go anywhere. You can go to a bar. You can go to a grocery store. Right. I mean, anytime that you have an opportunity to interact with a person, like Sharif was saying, just ask a question and actually listen for the answer.
Yeah, care about the answer.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, if you ask a question and you actually like care to hear the answer, and that's voir dire.
And Sharif, you said something that's kind of interesting.
Just kind of.
Let me tell you why, because I think about that often. So people ask me how I'm doing. I'm always on this high of life, right? I always say amazing, or I'm beyond blessed, and I really am. And some people look at me and they're like, "Do you really mean that?" Like they think that I'm just using a word, throwing out a word. And now I'm like, how do I answer my question to come across as credible? Like I really mean that my life is amazing and I'm blessed. But how do I get that across? And some people, because of the way they are and the way they see things, they're like, I don't know, that guy's just BSing us.
Well, to some degree, isn't it? When you walk by somebody and clearly both people are going in different directions, and you do, hey, how are you doing? We all do it. I do it at least. Like, it's probably not the best question, because a real how are you doing, if you actually care about the answer, is a real conversation. It's not a...
Yeah, because if you care, you want to go a little farther, right?
Yeah,
right.
and I think the context matters, right?
Exactly.
Like if a client asks me how are you doing, then yes, amazing, I'm great, I'm wonderful, I'm having a fantastic day, I hope you are too.
Your husband asks you.
Right. Or yeah, if my husband asks me, then I can tell him for real. Well, but I would put him in like a third category, because if he's asking, I know he's really asking.
Yes.
So it's not like, I'm not going to say good and then he's going to move on to the next topic.
And he's a good man. Yeah. I know him well. He's a great guy.
He's lovely. That's why I married him.
Very much so. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
But I mean, if somebody comes in and they're like, hey, Nael, how are you doing? And you're like, good, great, I'm on top of the world. Maybe that is the right answer given the context. But if someone is genuinely asking you, how are you doing? Then I think that you should genuinely give them a good answer. Just like if you asked someone, how are they doing? And they said, good.
Top of the world.
Well, but what if they said top of the world? You know, like
my world.
It's like Eeyore walks into your office. He says he's having a lovely day. And you're like, great.
Yes.
So I think
agree.
I think that there's different things, but yes, I mean, I think you want to empower people to answer honestly, but that's because in that context, that's what you need, right?
No, I agree.
You don't want to throw away answer.
This just occurred to me. I mean, it's the voir dire is a start of a conversation, and if we're really looking at what a trial is, and that conversation continues throughout, right? Like, I mean, if you think about it, like, opening statement is just another part of the conversation. Then you get to direct, you get to cross. It's all a part of a conversation. And
from the lawyer's perspective, but not from the juror's perspective, because after voir dire, they just become an audience.
Well, but let's talk about that a little bit. So there are things you can do, I think, to make it more of a conversation. It's not tell the jury this. It's, can you share that with us? Can you walk all of us in this courtroom through A, B, and C, right? I mean, yes, the jury can't respond verbally, but I mean, there's head nods, there's gestures, there's the unspoken communication that's happening.
Without a doubt.
And you can even, I mean, I've done this before, whether it worked or not, I have no clue. But I found in like closing argument, like we're talking about damages. And it's like, you know what? I remember you ask that question. You're like, well, how the heck do we figure out the right number for this? And I'm like, that's a great question. And guess what? Now I'm here to try and help you figure that out. Right?
And Sharif, that's powerful. And I'll tell you, jurors have a pen and a notepad. And there are times in a trial.
For better or for worse, they have that.
Yes. There are times in a trial when I want something written down, I point that out to the jury.
Tell them to write it down.
I don't tell them, but I'm like, you know what?
Or you write it down.
The jurors have a pen and notepad and we'll keep track of that. And that's something important. They will write it down. And I look and everyone is writing it down. They don't do it right away. They wait until like I move on. They start writing it down. So there are certain things that you do. And, Sharif, I had a trial and Sharif was like, I liked whiteboards. I was like, well, I never thought about using a whiteboard. I was crossing the defendant and I had a statement of the defendant. I got up and I had the statement blown up and he would say something and I would write it on the whiteboard. So not only did the jury hear it, but they saw me slowly with a dry erase marker go, write it, right? Squeakly. And then at the end, in my closing, I brought it back. I was like, well, let me show you. This is a statement. This is what he said. And it was so powerful. So you kind of get them to engage with you some way, somehow, either by watching you write the testimony. And the one thing about the jury, with the jury instructions, a lot of people do, and going back to the jury, this is what the law says. You have to do this. No. You don't have to do this. Because if you have to do it, guess what? You're not in control. I tell them, this is what the law says. You get to do this. You empower them. I don't tell the jury they have to do a single thing. No, you get to do it. And then they're like kind of straightening up in their seat and they're like, yeah, I get to fight for justice. I get to hold this person accountable. A lot of people lose sight of that. So it's all about words. It's making sure they remain engaged and thinking about how you keep them engaged.
And prepare them for the ultimate conversation.
Yes.
Which is what doesn't happen in the courtroom.
Right.
It's what's
Exactly.
happening in the
You arm
deliberation.
them.
And we talk about you arm them. Yeah.
This is good stuff. I mean, I'm having fun. But before, we didn't even get to what you came here and you wanted to chat about.
Oh, that's okay.
No,
Yeah,
we're not done yet.
No,
Let's
we're not.
go.
Hey, we got all day.
We have all day. We need to bump up our listener count, or our hours. We did just cross 1,000 some hours listened, which I know
amazing.
it's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah,
So
we
let's add to the hours.
So what makes Courtney Winston as a trial attorney? You're different. I can tell you're different. You stand out. You do a great job. And, when I look and either I'm on LinkedIn or on TV and I see your face, I'm like, well, there's a reason why she is the face and she should be the face and she's earned to be the face. So why is that?
I don't know. I think I know why I'm doing the work that I'm doing. I enjoy being an attorney. I like learning about the law. I like teaching other lawyers about the law. And I think that's genuinely how I feel about coming to work every day. And I think that shines through. And
It does, but we talked about something about we do it our way.
Yeah, I was just thinking we've all had kind of non-traditional, unorthodox kind of career paths. And for me, I didn't set out to do anything unusual. It was just kind of, I started off at Legal Aid, then I went to work for David. Now I'm with the Allens. And it's just, that's what worked for me. And I'm just making it work for me, right? Like you're JAG, you're a prosecutor. Now you've got your own firm. And Nael, you're on.
Well, Gray owns a firm,
Okay.
so that's
All
the
right.
confusing part. So it's Gray's firm, and I'm lucky to be a part of it. But no, it's but my email's cool. It says graybroughton.com because his first name is Gray. So that's how it works out.
Man, so I need there to be a Winston Allen at my firm.
That's right. So
Yeah, but I was just thinking that was something that the three of us had in common. Is just kind of unorthodox paths.
well, in some respects, it's like, at least reflecting on my own path, it's the willingness to not settle, right? Like, I mean, just to try and keep improving and to learn more about yourself and ultimately to find the work that moves you and the people that you want to be around and do that work with. And it's not easy. I mean, it took me a while. Right. Like, and I'm very happy where I'm at. I've had a handful of very good jobs, and each one has taught me a number of things that I think really has helped me the last few years. I think do some good work and really enjoy it in the process.
Sharif is like, this has been a long, hard 29 and a half years of life.
Yeah. No, I mean, 29 and a half, I feel like I'm 74 today, but 29-year-old with 2 kids and, and a wife and
a great career
built
that he's built.
No, I'm
and
very
David Segura entertaining him one-on-one while he's washing the dishes.
That's right. Now, so I am no longer in my 20s, unfortunately. But no, it's not easy. And to your point, like you just don't really know where your career will take you and what opportunities.
I think it's also a word that you said. It's openness, right? So if you're in a career and it's working for you, fantastic. But if you're in a place and the place is not fulfilling to you, then you do something else. Or, I mean, a lot of people don't, but you did, and I did, and Nael did.
Yes. And, one thing about the jobs and how they've rewarded us and how they taught us, the job is a small part of it. It's you. It's you, Courtney. It's you, Sharif. It's what you wanted to gain from that job. And the reason why y'all love what you do is because you have a perspective. And it's the perspective and it's not the job. And a lot of people lose sight of that. And I remember when I was prosecuting, I was like, I love this job. There's no way I can ever leave. There's no way. I don't care about the money. I don't care about anything. I just want to do this forever. And then I was worried transitioning to the bench. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to love this. And then now you ask me and I'm like, it's the best job in the world. I love it. And then I sit at home and I'm like, well, I loved working at Dairy Queen and flipping blizzards for my family. I love teaching. I love everything, right? And it's not the job anymore. It's you. It's you. And
I was like, we might not be asking you any more questions. You love every job you've ever had. Every day you're great on top of the world.
Sharif he's gonna say, hey, do they drug test you now?
I think you can recuse yourself from that. Is that how that works? But I mean, you've got a point. Like I remember mowing lawns when I was in high school, and I loved it. I got my $20 a lawn, and then I got to order some pizza and watch football.
Was anything greater than that?
No, it was awesome.
Exactly.
It's awesome. It was simple.
I mean, I've had some good jobs, but I feel like I wouldn't not be a lawyer.
Dairy Queen? DQ, no?
No, but that's where we can do number 2. Podcast number 2, we'll just post up in the Dairy Queen.
That DQ.
You know where we could really do podcast number 2? How about at our training event in October, on October 24th?
Why not?
You guys are going to be so busy. I don't know about that.
Well,
busy.
I mean, that was my very unsophisticated way of trying to plug our training event in October.
He plugged it.
This is a segue, but not really the smooth kind.
Correct. It was not well done. So no, but October 24th, Richmond, Virginia War Memorial. We've got an awesome lineup. It's called Voir dire to Verdict, and it is really, we start off talking about authenticity. With Andrew Capleshaw, a fantastic trial consultant, witness prep. We move into case framing, then we move into voir dire, then we move into opening, we move into focus group. We do it all. And then ultimately we finish with clothing. We've got guys like Joe Freed and Kenny Berger, Artemis Malakpour, and Courtney Winston, hopefully, coming. So it's going to be a good time.
We're excited. And Courtney, this has been great. And let me tell you, we asked you, why did you decide to go to law school? What was the impetus? And you said, after taking a couple of classes and thinking about doing things right and justice, and I was like, I can make a difference. And I want to tell you, you've made a difference.
Thanks.
And I mean it. I see it. You've made a difference.
Very much so.
And not only you've done it in court, you've done it for the women that you've represented with sexual assault cases. And to me, you come to mind when I think of a sexual assault case where a prosecutor cannot prove it because it's beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'm like, whoa, there's got to be someone that will hold someone accountable for their actions, or the company. And Courtney Winston comes to mind. And you've also done a difference in the lives of the people that are within your life, your friends. So I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do.
Thank
you. We are lucky to have you.
Absolutely. And so let me add one more thing to that. Courtney, you're also a nonstop learner, and you're very involved with a lot of the different trial organizations. And you've brought, at least in my opinion, you've brought a lot of that to Richmond. So you are the point of contact for trial school, which is awesome. I mean, you do a lot of stuff with AAJ. You are involved with the women trial lawyers and with VTLA. And so you very much believe that a rising tide lifts all boats, and I've certainly benefited from it. So we are very grateful to have you.
And Alan, it's lucky to have you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of RVA Trial Lawyers, Virginia's trial lawyer podcast. For more episodes, check out rvatriallawyers.com.